Welcome to the Heal, Thrive, Dream podcast, where trauma survivors become healthy thrivers. Each month, we'll feature a theme in the trauma recovery and empowerment field. To promote your recovery, healing, and learning how to build dreams, here is your host, Karen Robinson, transformational coach and therapist.
Hello, and welcome to the Heal, Thrive, Dream podcast. My guest today is Dee Davidson. Dee is a mom of 2 boys. She's also an entrepreneur in the wellness industry for over 2 decades. Dee has dedicated herself to empowering women to reclaim their health. As a board-certified functional health practitioner, she specializes in holistic hormone health. Dee is the host of the Confidently Balance Your Hormones podcast and writes articles to provide actionable strategies optimizing hormonal balance. Dee aims to create environments where women feel empowered to prioritize their well-being and embrace their strength. Thank you, Dee, for being a guest today.
Thank you for having me on.
Is there anything about your bio that you would like to add to?
As a human, I love the outdoors, traveling, pets, and just spending quality time with those boys.
Awesome. How old are your boys now?
They will be 12 and 14. All 3 of us are Cancer zodiac signs, so we all have our birthdays coming up within a 2-week time in July. Lots of action going on.
That's interesting. Yeah, it's very interesting. Okay. So as I serve trauma survivors, they're my listeners, the main population of people who listen. And I know that you support women are survivors, but do you happen to be a survivor as well?
I know we talked about this when you came on the Confidently Balance Your Hormones podcast in regard to what people define as trauma. I would certainly say that I have endured some generational trauma, being a daughter of immigrants who really had a hard time embracing the culture in the US and just feeling like I didn't fit in most of my life until my mid-20s, where I started to do my own therapy and self-growth and things due to the restrictions that were placed by my parents, and cultural norms just didn't exist for me. So I would say in that aspect, I did endure a lot of trauma accidentally, I guess, if you can. I love my parents and I don't think it was intentional, and they did the best that they could, but it did have a large impact on a lot of my decisions, my health. And back then I didn't realize it, but after doing the work and getting on this journey, I realized how much of an impact it did truly have on my health.
Yeah. And sometimes families with transgenerational trauma, they don't have the awareness or understand the impact that can have on families and how it can perpetuate. How have you broken that cycle with your own boys? Are you doing things a little bit different with how you're raising them?
Well, it's really interesting. Thanks for asking that question. So not only did I have trauma in my childhood and upbringing, but I ended up in a toxic relationship marrying someone who is a narcissist. And just even though I had thought that I had done some healing, I still ended up in that cycle of comfort of being with a man that was similar to my dad, right? So I was married for 10 years. My boys were 4 and 6 at the time that we divorced. It was actually not my fault, but I'm a person of faith, and I think God let me out of that contract because I deserve better. My boys deserve better. When I was let out of that contract, that was another time where I realized some of the stuff that still needed to be worked on and how that trauma was still unresolved. And I went through an unexpected divorce. My ex-husband literally came home one day from work and said he was crying. And I said, "What's wrong?" Because the cancer in me wants to help everyone and nurture everyone. And he said, "I can't do this anymore." And I said, "Can't do what?" And he just did this thing where he pointed like this. And I hadn't even gotten out of bed yet. And we had just bought this American dream home 6 weeks before. My oldest was going into first grade. That's the whole reason we moved to this school district. My business was going well. He had a good job. I thought everything was great. Not great, because there's always ups and downs, but there wasn't any sign of, I'm going to ask you for a divorce or I'm going to demand a divorce. So he ended up, he didn't want to go to therapy. We went one time. He just said, "It's you don't make me happy." We know that story. That was it. He didn't want to work it out. And within a couple months had moved out. And the funny thing is, 6 months later, he did say he wanted to resolve this, but I had started to get back into my healing stuff. And I remember one day my therapist said to me, "Dee, what about you? What about you?" They kept making excuses. He works at a prison. He's been through a lot. And that was a changing moment. From that day on, I was like, yeah, what about me? I'm going to prioritize my health and realize that it's my birthright to be happy and start really understanding where these things came from at a deeper level. So you asked about my kids. This whole piece of it is a big part of how I changed things for my kids, because I wanted to teach them what a healthy relationship was, not just with others, but themselves. And so many times I reflect, go, wow, I wish I had all of these tools and knowledge in my upbringing that I'm giving to my kids. But I really focus on making them understand that it's not selfish to vocalize their needs or have their needs met, that they don't have to feel bad. They're not responsible for how other people feel. Because fast forward, post divorce, they still have to go to their dad's house, right, a few days a week. And I can't be there with them. Many times they call me every single Thursday when they go there, they call me and they're crying and they're getting all of that dark energy and verbal abuse, but I can't be there to save them. But I'm happy to say that I feel that I equip them with some tools to feel safe and to know that they can reach out to me and that they are coming back to a grounded place. And yeah, so we work on a lot of the things that have helped me, that I've learned just at a child level, if you will, right, at that scale. And they see it. My friend actually texted me yesterday. I'm going through some things with my ex-husband right now. He's taking me back to court for 50-50 custody. And it's not for another day with his kids. It's for the money, because my business is thriving and he sees the dollar signs, right? So my friend said to me, make sure you tell those boys to really be conscious of who they pick as their partner. And I said, that is so true. That is great advice. But they see it. They love their dad. But they have a lot of questions about his behavior and the toxicity and all of that stuff. And I'm really happy to say that through all of that trauma of being in a toxic relationship and with my parents, that I feel like I'm really in a good place. But we have to go within and really unravel where did it begin, and also acknowledge it never goes away. I think a lot of people look for a finish line. And just in the last week, my world was turned upside down again. So it's ongoing. We have to learn how to acknowledge the emotion and let it go. But that hope with my kids is that, and I know I see it. I see them practice the things. See them doing the breath work. They do the affirmations. I see them with the self-talk. And I'm really proud of them, even the way that they vocalize their needs to their dad, because it's not easy, right? When you're 12 and 14, that's the opposite of what I did. I was so afraid to be seen, heard, or speak out. But I'm really proud of them, because I see that they are taking the tools and advocating in a respectful way and saying, no, that's actually not the truth. And yes, my feelings matter. So we've implemented a lot of things that make me proud of the change from one generation to another, if you will.
What a beautiful way to raise your sons, though, to explain breath work to them and affirmations and how powerful our self-talk is. And also how to use their voice.
Okay. Even outside of a relationship with their dad, even with friends, like one day my little guy, he went to a Halloween party and it was really scary because it was with his older brother's friends, and he's the youngest, right? They were playing out in the dark and scaring him, and someone threw water at him, and it was just terrible because it was trauma for him, a small T, right? And he called me up and he asked me to pick him up, but he just told his friends that he didn't feel well to get out of the situation, which was, I think, great that he knew how to get out of it. But when he got in the car, he just started crying. I taught them, like, hey, tell yourself that you're safe, and saying I'm safe. All these things that, again, I wish that I had these tools, and I just see like these beautiful souls, how they're transforming at such a young age. They're just great human beings.
Yeah, because you're their mama, so of course.
Aw, thanks.
Yeah,
They
that
are my
was
pride and joy.
definitely. And how do you think your past and the stuff that you've gone through impacted your career choice? Or how did you get
So,
interested in your career?
yeah, so my career choice, I always loved health. It was like leg warmer days. I'm dating myself now, right? I loved the gym and had the body suits on, and I'd come home and my mom would laugh because I'd say, "Can you hold my feet so I can do some sit-ups?" And I'd be making the eggs and the protein and all that, right? I've always loved health and wellness. I'm of Portuguese descent, so healthy cooking and eating that's not a thing. And they actually look at, if you're thin and fit, that you're unhealthy. They think like you got to eat more. So that wasn't part of the culture. It's just how I was wired. And I've always had a love for it. But when I went to go to school, my dad told me, you can't go to school for anything like that because that's silly. You got to go to school for business. That's where the money's at, which I guess that's where I've ended up, right? But initially, I went to school for business and I went into the investment world. Again, part of the work that I've had to do is come back to self and where I abandoned myself, right? And my needs. I think so many people are working jobs that they don't like because they were told that's what you do, or the safety of it, the fear of it. I went to this job every day and wore business suits and had my 401k and all that great stuff. And when I had my son, I went through an infertility battle, which is part of the reason I love teaching about hormones. I went through an infertility battle and I was put in this unexplained infertility category. So I started to research hormones and all the things affecting it and our products and food, environment, all of those things. And so I really fell in love with the idea of hormones. And when I had my son, I knew I was going to leave the corporate world. That was the deal, that I was going to be home with these kids because my parents, being, immigrants, I love that I got their work ethic, but they weren't able to be home with me that much because they were making minimum wage working in factories. So my grandparents took care of me a lot of the time. And then I had this wonderful neighbor who oftentimes I'll tell her that she actually influenced the mother that I am, because I would watch her. She was a stay-at-home mom, and I would watch her with her kids, and she'd be on the field trips and take us in the woods to collect leaves and all these things. And really, I always said, I'm going to be Donna. So when I had my oldest son, I left corporate and I was home, and then had another child 2 years later, and I was really depressed. I was like, oh man, this is not who I am either, because I am the person who likes to work. It's in my blood. I can't sit here all day and just go to play dates and color things. I like that, but I also need a sense of purpose for myself. And so that's when I got into the whole health and wellness thing. Again, I started to think about how important it was to get information out in regard to infertility, because that's the stage of life I was in then, and how there's such a rise in struggles. And also, a second piece was I had these little boys that were 1 and 3, and I was horrified knowing everything that I was learning on my own in regard to baby food and formula, and even the body washes and shampoos and lotions and all of these things, to the point where my son had really bad eczema. I went to the dermatologist, and dermatologist said, here's some steroid cream, but don't use it too often because it's linked to childhood leukemia. All of these things I'm a spiritual person, and they kept adding up to, you need to get out your purpose. Your God-given purpose is to get out and share this information to help people, to inform people. For a long time, I thought that people just didn't care, Karen. I thought they just don't care. Like, they just want to eat crap, or they don't care about the shampoo they're using. They want to take the chances. But the truth of the matter, in the last 2 decades of what I learned, is that that's not true. People just aren't informed, and they just trust the government would be protecting them, and that doctors, I'm not anti-doctor, we need doctors, but they think if my doctor's giving me this, then it must be safe, it must be okay. And so that's when I realized, like, hey, I can actually stay home with my kids, and maybe this is what I can do. So I went into the whole wellness arena and went through different places. At first, I would educate on those things. And then I went to school for my hormone health certification. And then most recently, in the last few years, I went back to be a board certified functional health practitioner, because what I found was that without science and data, there's a lot of guessing going on, and it can take a lot longer to resolve issues because you're constantly in that cycle of trial and error. So I thought, all right, I'd send my clients to the doctor, and the doctor would say, that's silly. You don't need that. You only need this marker. We're not doing that test. So I said, you know what? I'm going to just take the matter into my hands. It was really scary. School was never my thing. Didn't like school. I wasn't a good student. People are always shocked when you tell them that. But I sucked it up because I knew, like, I'm supposed to be doing this and I can do things that are hard. And right. And faced it. It was challenging for sure, because I was still running a coaching business and going back to school and having my 2 kids home. But I'm proud to say that all got accomplished, and it's just so rewarding to be able to help more people. Women are my main demographic, but they send me their kids, they send me their husbands, their mothers, fathers, all. The body is the body, but we have to look at people as individuals. And the fun part of that is that my kids are learning so much, right? I'm not saying that they're 100% eating organic food and not wanting to eat those. That people ask me all the time, how do you get your kids to eat healthy? Going to be teenagers too, right? So they don't always make good choices, but they're seeing in our house, I'm certainly not buying that stuff for them. That this is, I always tell them, we don't eat that way in the home. If you go to a party, or if you're on your bike and you have a couple dollars and you go to Target and you decide to buy that, I don't want them to have an unhealthy relationship with food, because those are the women that we deal with too, right?
Right, exactly.
Or even the men. But they are seeing it. And even my son, just funny, he had this bruise. He was freaked out. Like, is this a tumor? And I'm like, no, you could see the bruise. It was just underneath too. It was like a little lump, but it moved and everything. And I put the castor oil pack on him, right? Like 14-year-olds with a castor oil pack. But he was asking for it for 3 nights. And on my little remedies, sometimes I'll have a headache, and he'll say, whatever your witchcraft is, I'll try it. Because they're starting to get to that age now that they're like, it is not the norm, but, or their friends will come over and say, this is Davidson, does this have dyes in it? But they're like just being sarcastic. And it's just, it's really such, I feel like when I worked in the financial industry, I hated going to work every day. And some people might like that, but sitting at a desk all day, I felt like I was really not contributing much to society. And this is definitely my God-given purpose.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. Yeah, I know you jokingly called it witchcraft, but I just want to remind our listeners that there's a lot of science behind functional medicine and using natural remedies that don't have all the preservative chemicals into it. Can be sometimes, a lot of times, better options. It's good to have choices. And so if you feel like your regular doctor is not hearing you, not listening to what you want, or it's not working, it's okay to go to functional medicine. I have survivors that absolutely hate going to the doctor because it can be really oppressive as well. Some treatment. Maybe one of them will hear you in a different way.
So true. And that's what I love about the labs too, is that people treat the body as if it's all separate systems, the hormones, the immune system, the digestive system. Once you really acknowledge that everything is one, they're not separate, and we go to the endocrinologist and then the GI and then the OB, if we realize that what functional medicine does is brings all of those interconnected systems together and look at that trickling effect or that cascading effect, it's just a way to restore function a little bit more easily than chasing the next symptom.
So what's your favorite part of the work that you're doing?
The favorite part is giving women their life back, because there are so many women that they're not sleeping. And if you don't sleep, that's everything, because it affects your energy. It affects how you feel. It affects how you show up. And I like to think of my work as not just making my client a better person and have a better quality of life, but it's a trickle effect to the collective, that if we help someone feel better, then they're going to show up as a different person. They're going to give off a different energy. So my favorite part really is giving people that they might have never. I've had so many clients that say, I don't think I ever felt that way. Or when I ask, like, what's the happiest time in your life? And they're like, I don't know if I can even remember the happiest time in my life, or time you felt your best in your body. So to me, that's like the ultimate gift that you can give someone, that they tell you like they like looking in the mirror. So many women will say to me, I'll have them do mirror talk, and we have to slowly work into this. And they say that they can't, or that they would wash their hands. Like, what do you do when you wash your hands in the bathroom? They would never look themselves in the mirror, which I can't even fathom. So that's my favorite part, is when someone turns around and says, "Oh my gosh," my coworkers, they're like, "What are you doing?" And I recorded one of my clients, so sweet. She's like, "Yeah, I don't care." I'm an introvert and I'm not usually very social. And my coworkers are commenting on my mood and what's going on with me. And or another one, she's like, "My husband can't stop smacking my butt," because I talk about that too, especially when the men are like, "Oh, another thing," or "What makes this different?" The importance of taking care of ourselves, it affects your relationship. And that's all of that. That's my favorite part, is when people start having these moments where they're feeling better and their bodies. Oh my gosh, one woman, she told me she was constipated, and when I said, "When was the last time you went to the bathroom regularly?" She said she doesn't believe she ever has, even as a child. And she's working with me for about 7 weeks, and she's amazed, right? But she had a gluten sensitivity, and no one ever tested her for it. And gluten is a major cause for constipation. So it's
Right.
having the knowledge, and that's where the science comes in, to say, all right, this is what's causing my body to be in a state of dis-ease.
I'm wondering if you can think of a woman that you worked with that is a trauma survivor. It probably is not that hard, I'm guessing.
No, yeah, there's
A lot
lots
of
of them.
women,
Yeah.
a lot of women are survivors. But how working with her hormones made a difference in her healing and recovery? Do you have an
Yeah. So
example?
it's whole health, right? So when people come to me, they actually don't want to talk about the trauma at first. They really have to work on that relationship. And also, it's a collaborative thing. So when I first started, I thought, I'm going to take it all on, because I am an intuitive person. And I was like, all right, whole health. So I'm going to do all of this. And then I'd realize like how heavy the trauma piece can be. I have people in my toolbox like yourself that we work together on this, but I typically attract people for the physical ailments that trauma is triggering. So they come to me because they're having fatigue or digestive issues or things like that. So I do start with the physical ailments and the hormone balance. But at the end of the day, when we talk about trauma, and I've had many women with trauma stories, I have to work with what they're coming to me for first,
Sure,
and
yeah.
then transition to having them trust me and feel comfortable to doing that. And as far as the hormone piece goes, we know like dopamine, serotonin, all that stuff. If we don't feel good, sometimes it's chemically not there. Getting past the trauma, not that we get past it, but you know what I'm saying, like getting through that experience is going to be even more challenging and more difficult, because if you don't wake up every day and you don't feel good and your hormones are tanked and you don't have the melatonin to go to sleep and your cortisol, you're running on fight or flight, so your nervous system and your anxiety is going all the time, you don't even want to face this, you don't want to get help, you have a really hard time reaching out and acknowledging. It makes the battle, I believe, so much more challenging, because if your physiological body isn't equipped to help you do that, then you're definitely not going to go there. Even therapy, I'll be like, "Hey, do you go to therapy?" And they're like, "No." So we have to refine the hormones, the happy hormones, and balance the body out in order to get people to take that step, which is usually at about 3 to 6 months with me, when they're feeling happy and they're feeling good. And then I just had someone, actually, her son's 3, father of the son, she actually found him. He had committed suicide. And so she's got all this, a 3-year-old to take care of, and all this stuff's coming up in her gut health. And we've worked together for 6 months. And then now she's at the place where she's like, has the energy to take it on and feels better when she wakes up and about her situation, that now that's her next step, that I just sent her. And I said, okay, we've done the physical stuff. Like, it's going to keep reoccurring unless you go do this stuff, but we have to physically be able to handle it.
It's interesting because I'm working on holistic care in my practice. The link for me in my practice was energetic healing. So I'm working on certification for that. But because I've worked in hospitals as part of my career, I recognize very quickly when survivors are not taking care of themselves. So I actually have a checklist of physical things I ask them to check on, and getting their labs done, checking if they don't want to go to a regular functional medicine doctor. When is the last time they've been to their dentist or had their eyes checked? And what
I love
referrals
that.
have they received and have not gone to? Like a
Mhm.
sleep study. If you got a referral to a sleep study, please get it done. A lot of that too in my work, because it's hard to focus on healing your mental health or emotional health if your body's falling apart,
That's
you know?
right. Or if you can't sleep, right? Sleep is
Yeah,
so important. It's so important.
it's vital. Yeah. Because you'll feel really crazy if you go too many nights without sleep.
Yeah.
It
Same
is
thing with
vital.
minerals. A lot of women will come to me for a hair mineral test, which is a great inexpensive test that will tell you the state of your health. I think it's kind of going to one of those machines with your car, the diagnostic hookup, and it gives you an overview of what's going on in your body. We can get a general sense of what minerals might be depleted, which a lot of people are depleted of minerals. How can they operate? How can their brain function properly? So it looks at mineral deficiencies, toxicities. So there's a lot of neurotoxins that might be affecting you, especially in today's environment. It will look at blood sugar balance on there, look at thyroid marker and your adrenals, and give us some hormonal markers to say, like, all right, are there other things to be addressed? But if you don't have the right mineral balances or the right minerals in your body, it can really affect your mental health at a foundational level.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. And so if someone in the audience is listening and they're like really curious and considering working with you, what are some things that you offer? Is it just one-to-one coaching? Do you have courses or workshops? Tell us more about what you offer.
Sure. I do offer one-on-one coaching, and that is the majority of my practice. However, I have a group coaching program. So for someone who's not really ready to work with me one-on-one, but they're curious and want to find out about the foundationals and how to rebalance their hormones or just in general be more preventative and holistic, I have a group program. We get on a group Zoom every week, and it's a great community. And I'm on there for coaching purposes, as well as they get my app that has 30 different modules on different things, from balancing your hormones to making sure that you're getting the right minerals to detoxification. So a little bit of everything. So I have my one-on-one, I have my group program, and then I have some just self-guided courses on my website for people who are looking for something specific. And the most popular ones are transitioning off of birth control, because more and more women are understanding that it's not really good for your gut health, and it's not really helping your hormones now or long term.
Hormone.
Yeah, help people prepare and feel comfortable for that transition. And the other one is that hair mineral test. If someone wants to, it's so simple. If someone wants to order a test, they just click their hair, and then on my self-guided course, I have all of the steps saying, if you're low in zinc, these are the things you can do, or if your copper zinc's out of balance, here's what you do. So they basically have a workbook to build their own protocol to rebuild that foundational piece. And then again, my podcast is fun because I have guests like yourself on there. Confidently balance your hormones. But those are the main things I offer.
Awesome. And can you share your website with everyone?
Of course, confidentlyloveyourself.com.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful name. And I can't remember if I asked you this before. Have you published a book?
Not yet. It's on my list.
Okay. I was going to just highly suggest that you put it on your list, because every functional medicine practitioner has different focus, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe one doesn't relate well to a client, but another would.
Sure.
So your particular take, like the gifts that you bring to your talent, right? I think that would be really wonderful to write about.
Thank you. It is on the list.
Yay! Yeah, no pressure on this side because I know it's hard with kids.
It will happen.
It will happen. Yes, it will.
It will happen.
Well,
Last year was the podcast. I launched that in the fall.
and you're doing great. Like even the emails that you sent out, like it's really well organized. Like you can tell you put time and effort into it. It's really great.
Thank you. And we get the spammies, and I really work hard. I only send one email a week. If someone goes to my website, they can sign up for my weekly email, and I try to offer as much value and come from a place of education as opposed to buy this and we don't do 21 fixes and all of those things. But I think the more information, there's just not a lot of education, especially around women's hormones. And especially at midlife, a lot of women are told it's just the way it is, deal with it. Oh, I went through it and it's going to get worse, like all of these things. And that's not true. I'm here to tell you that I'm going to be 50.
Hopeful.
Not true. Not true.
Not hopeful either. Yes, there's always something to do to feel better. There's so many different options to try. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, Dee will be a guest on my show today. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening in today. Please join us next week, same day and time. Also, I would love for you to check out my website, healthrivedream.com.